Hi friends! Ever struggled to decide what to bring to Thanksgiving? Well, look no further. Today we're going to be making a zucchini cheddar loaf, and yes, you can make it. Everyone can cook with Emma. So we're going to be starting out with our zucchini. I really love any kind of breads that have zucchini in them because they end up being super moist as compared to other ones. So I'm just going to start by cutting off the ends of them. You can also keep those on to maintain more of a handle. So I'm just going to go ahead and shred up my zucchini on my box grater. You can also use a food processor if you would prefer. These don't have to be perfect shreds, it just doesn't matter. Determined it was a little bit less, so I'm going to go for about 1.5 total zucchinis. Now that we have enough zucchini, we're just going to collect all of it. Remember, swipe up on the grater so that you don't grate your hand in order to collect all of your shreds. And we're going to move this to the bowl. What's interesting about this recipe is that it doesn't have you wring out all of the moisture from the zucchini. Usually it does before you use it for a bread. So now we're just going to slice up our scallions. The white end tastes more like onion, the green end tastes a little bit sweeter. If you don't like the really harsh oniony taste, you can remove the white parts. I personally love it. So I'm just going to slice it all up on a slight bias or on a slight diagonal and get all of our scallions into this. I love this bread because it's super savory. It almost tastes like a flaky croissant cornbread type of vibe. I do think next time I'm going to throw in a jalapeno chopped up. I think that would make the perfect touch. So next in is going to be 2 eggs. You can use flax eggs if you're allergic to eggs. You can crack them right in or you can crack them separately if you're worried about getting either a bad egg or getting some shell in there. And then next we need 3/4 of a cup of sour cream. So I'm just going to score it down the middle and put about 3/4 of this sour cream in there. I am not typically a sour cream person, but it works in this recipe. And then lastly, we have the melted butter, and this is going to give the good shine on the top of the loaf when we make it. So now that we have all of the wet ingredients mixed together, we're going to give it a good mix in order to get everything incorporated and completely covered before we mix in the dry ingredients. The reason this is important is because once you get the dry ingredients in there, it can get really, really tough the more you work it. But at this point, the more you work it, the more it will be mixed, and that's the worst case scenario here. So we're going to get it to be completely consistent, and then lastly we're going to add in our sharp cheddar cheese. And this will just create really good bursts throughout the loaf. I used a thick cut of cheddar, and I'm really, really glad that I did. But any kind of cheddar will work, even a vegan cheddar if you prefer. So we're going to go for about 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese, or 2 handfuls. Let's mix this in, and then we're going to put it to the side and get started with all of our dry ingredients. So first we're going to do flour, and I'm going to remember the reason that I always use a spoon to pull it out instead of pouring it like this, regretting my life choices. So now we're going to add our 2nd cup of flour. Yes, you should be sifting it. No, I will not be sifting it because I'm lazy and that's just how I bake. I also don't measure, which stresses a lot of people out. Measurements will be in the description below if you're interested though. So we're going to add some baking soda, baking powder, and of course salt. There is already butter and cheddar in there, but the salt is really needed, especially to balance out all of that zucchini. And then we're going to realize that we want even more cheese than just the cheddar. So let's double up on some Parmesan that's left over from our chicken piccata meatballs made a little bit earlier, and mix that in. And now we're going to add just half of the dry ingredients. You can add it all at once, but I personally find it a lot easier to mix and a lot less messy if you mix about half first. Give it a little bit of a mix to get it incorporated just a bit, not completely, and then add the other half. Just makes it a bit easier to manage and easier on your wrist that way, so it's less to mix in at once. So now that we have it all together, we're just going to mix it to be incorporated, but we don't want to over mix it because remember, now the gluten is active. We don't want a tough loaf, we want it to be nice and tender. I like to use a folding technique where you scoop and then put that piece on top, which means that you're getting everything from the bottom of the bowl. It does look a little dry to me, so I'm going to use a little bit of oat milk. If you would prefer to use dairy milk or soy milk or almond milk, anything will work. This is just being used as a thinning agent, And now we're gonna grab some kind of oil, either spray or oil, to put all over the pan to make sure it doesn't stick. I realized I ran out of vegetable oil during Hanukkah, so here I am using olive oil instead. Some regrets, but I'm sure the flavor will be fine because at least it's a savory loaf. So we're just gonna brush this all over the corners of this because I really hate when things stick after spending a long time cooking them. And now that it's all greased up, we're gonna dump our entire bread batter into the loaf pan very carefully and even it out slightly just to make sure that it bakes evenly. And your loaf pan should be about 2/3 full. I think these would absolutely rock in muffin tins or even mini muffin tins because the crust on this loaf, let me tell you, just wait for it. Super proud of my loaf here, clearly. And we're gonna set this to bake for roughly an hour at 350 degrees. I have a pretty weak oven and it took mine about an hour and 20 minutes to bake all the way through. The way that you tell whether or not a loaf, a cake, or really anything is fully baked through is to take either a toothpick or a skewer, poke it right down the middle, and if it comes out completely clean, I'm talking about no crumbs, no batter, no anything, that's when you know it's done. And look at this beauty. Boy, am I proud of this. This is definitely going to be a Thanksgiving side moving forward.